So, dude, a great pay-per-view with Clash of the Castle. We have a lot going into tonight with Raw. We got McIntyre. How will he respond with Punk and how we screwing him over with the World Heavyweight title? We have Chad Gable livid with Otis because he cost him the IC title, and then we have the rumored. Well, it's not rumored anymore because there's a countdown clock with Uncle Howdy. Do you think his faction will show up, and will there be a massacre?
I do see something pretending to be going on tonight with the QR codes.
Yeah.
So I think if anything's going to happen with the Wyatt family, it should happen towards the end of the show. I don't want it to happen in the middle of the show or even in the beginning, because you want something. If something's going to have an impact on tonight's show, it's got to be towards the end of the main event.
Yeah, I can see that. You know, keep the audience interested until the end. I like that. Do you think there'll be? Yeah, go ahead.
Because you feel like if you feel like they're not gonna be out at the very beginning of the show, because look, we already had Clash of the Castle happen Saturday, so we already know that Drew McIntyre was gonna get screwed out of his audience in Scotland, and people kept saying to me, well, do you really think that Drew McIntyre wins the title heading into SummerSlam? I really don't think so, because I could see him holding a title for a period of maybe 2 to 3 months, but
Yeah.
when Gunther wins the title from whoever holds it, Gunther's gonna hold it for a long time.
Oh,
Especially
for
if
sure.
because especially if you get Drew McIntyre and Gunther at SummerSlam, which we're probably not going to have that, then we're already looking at a new world champion going into SummerSlam.
It's funny because commentary on Saturday mentioned that Gunther is looming for whoever wins the match on Saturday, because he is slated to face them at SummerSlam. So it looks like we're going to be getting Gunther versus Priest at SummerSlam, and we all know that that Priest has no chance against Gunther. It's going to be
Right.
Chop City.
Right.
Yeah.
So going into the pay-per-view, going into Clash of the Castle, a lot of people spectated that Drew McIntyre was going to walk in as champion over Damian Priest. So do we really see if everything was going to unfold going into the pay-per-view, and especially coming into tonight's show, and everybody thought that maybe CM Punk might have helped Drew McIntyre win the title, so that way CM Punk gets his title shot against Drew McIntyre going into SummerSlam.
I will give WWE kudos for the creativity, the genius creativity. So I knew Punk was going to interfere with Drew McIntyre in the title in some way, but I had no idea it was going to be from a referee angle. The ref got taken out. Drew McIntyre was calling for the ref, even though the crowd was counting 10. The camera pans out, so we have no idea who the ref is. Dude, I was watching it. As soon as the camera angle was basically focused on the back of this person's head, I saw the hair, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's Punk!" And he counted 1, 2, and then held it. And then Drew McIntyre was looking, and the crowd erupted. And you saw Punk with holding up the 2. That's how he screwed McIntyre, and in the most creative way possible. And then to add insult to injury, WWE put out a tweet that it was what happened with Punk. He was looking at the backstage footage of McIntyre and Priest. He saw the referee got taken out, and he immediately got out of there. He's like, Jessica, do you have an extra referee uniform? She's like, yeah, here you go. What's it for? He's like, oh, I'll explain later. And then he goes to the ring. Oh man, it was great.
Oh my god. So
I retweeted that. I said goat. He's so funny, dude. He's such a dick. He's such a dick, but I love it, man.
he
Dude, this feud is going to be awesome. I mean, I said in my short that Punk is going to be on Raw tonight, but he's actually slated for.
because SmackDown's in Chicago. Yes. So JD from New York 206 had pointed out over the weekend that even though Punk is a Raw superstar and SmackDown this weekend is going to be live in Chicago, that Punk might go to SmackDown just so he's not literally on Raw this week, just so he can get out what he needs to get out with him and Drew McIntyre. So when McIntyre shows up maybe the following Monday, heading into the weekend before Money in the Bank, maybe we're gonna see a stare down between the two in the ring for our last promo. So that way,
Yeah.
maybe they do lock horns going into SummerSlam, and then maybe we get that Hell in a Cell match between the two of them.
So there was actually a report that I think it was in the press conference that Triple H is looking to bring back the Bad Blood pay-per-view and slate it into October, and there's going to be a Hell in a Cell match.
So
Because yeah,
good.
there was somebody on at the press conference, and Punk, you know, talked to him, and he's like, hey man, I would love to see your first match. You know, if I was booking this thing, I would have you and Drew, a Hell in the Cell match. He's like, dude, with all due respect, I'm glad you're not in creative, because the first match with Drew and I in Hell in the Cell, dude, Hell in the Cell is made for like the final, kind of like an I Quit match. It's made for like the
It's like the
final
final
stuff
stage of
for a
every pay
feud.
per view.
Yeah. So, yeah, the 3 stages of hell, no pun intended. We are definitely getting. I would love to see a three match, you know, a Triforce in this feud, and it ending up being a Hell in the Cell. We'll see. We'll see what WWE comes up with. I'm very excited.
So I know this is kind of a little off the subject, but
Yeah.
I do kind of like how, if you remember back in 2016, it was either 15 or 16,
Yeah.
where they did 3 matches with AJ Styles and Roman Reigns heading into, I think, like the middle of the year. And the one they had like a regular match. The second match was like a no holds barred, and the third match was the Extreme Rules match. So like they were literally having 3 matches back to back to back. So it's
Yeah.
like it's just kind of like the Seth Rollins Cody Rhodes match. People wanted to see more of it, because you know the first match at WrestleMania was like, oh my god, like I would love to see a second one. You know, so inconclusive to all of that,
Yeah.
you know, we haven't really seen a CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre match, probably since when CM Punk was in WWE 11 years ago. So now that CM Punk is back, we might be getting, 3 matches maybe in a row between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. So you think about it, we might be getting a wrestling match, the first match, then maybe a no holds barred second match. So then we get to that third stage match. Now we're looking at Hell in a Cell going into October.
Dude, bad. Like, it's funny because you think blood, you think vampires, October, Halloween. It's kind of cool actually if you think about it. Because Vince wanted, oh, we're gonna do a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, because it's October. But you've got, Hell in a Cell on Raw, Hell in a Cell on SmackDown, and it's like it lost its purpose. But like Bad Blood for October, I think that's a good call on WWE's part. I
Um,
mean, NXT has Halloween Havoc. The main roster has Bad Blood. I mean, um, with pay-per-views, to have a lot, um, you know, it, to have a lot of pay-per-views can somewhat be tiresome. But if you look at it from a creative standpoint, it builds to it builds to a certain feud because kind of that big match feel, you know what I mean. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
leads to more of a creative standpoint. And Sami Zayn, with the new five five match you know the 5 match pay-per-views going from here on out. Sami Zayn said it makes it feel more special than if you have 7, 8, 9, paper 7, 8, 9 matches on a pay-per-view. Having 4 to 5 matches per pay-per-view, makes it more special, and that's where I come in with it makes the creativity of these feud builds better.
I think when Triple H, um, when Triple H stepped in for Vince's role, I think he wanted to look back at how can I reimburse pay-per-views going into the year where everybody can still be happy with the event itself. So I think when you look back into all the October pay-per-views from the last 10 years,
Yeah.
like we're getting Hell in a Cell pay-per-views, we're getting TLC pay-per-views, we're getting Money in the Bank pay-per-views. You know, we grew up as kids watching like you said, pay-per-views like Unforgiven, Bad Blood, Armageddon. Like there's just
It's like
pay-per-views.
they're themed for a reason.
Right.
Bad blood. Oh, there's bad blood between McIntyre and Punk.
But
They're
if you
I want payback on what happened at WrestleMania. There's a backlash coming. It's,
if you look
it's
if you look at the last 5 years of watching like basically the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, there's basically no, how can I say it? Probably no big storyline basically for the whole pay-per-view to even be a thing called Hell in a Cell, because we're not really getting just a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. We want to get like the main story of that pay-per-view. Like when you watch Shawn Michaels and Taker from 1997, all the matches before then weren't, even though the pay-per-view was called Bad Blood, whoever had a rivalry going into that pay-per-view all had matches before the Hell in a Cell match itself. So when you look at like 2003, Kevin Nash, Triple H, Bad Blood, 2003, nobody else
yeah
had a Hell in a Cell match between those two guys because they have chemistry with each other. And we were looking at how can we focus on these two people besides everybody else be on the pay-per-view event, and we gotta look past all those people so that way we can focus on the main event. So that's why when we call it Bad Blood, we have to have some kind of history so we can focus on just that focal point of that match itself.
yeah. Okay, switching gears to the next storyline, we have Chad Gable losing the EIC title match to Sami Zayn. Now, what do you think will happen tonight when it comes to Chad Gable? Do you think the Otis turn will happen tonight, and he'll kind of beat up Chad Gable for all the disrespect he has towards him? And do you think Chad Gable will align himself with the Creed brothers, and to make him more of a heel?
So you brought up a really good point. Um, so if the heel turn is gonna turn out with him and the Creed brothers, I think it either happens this week or the following week. Only
But
because they have to build him up with the next group coming in. Because I feel
it's going to
like
be
if it's just going to be him attacking Otis and Azawa and her, we need to find out like if he's really going to go bad by himself or if he's going to line himself with the Creed brothers. Because at this point in stature, I think we see maybe not at Money in the Bank, but maybe heading into SummerSlam. I just see Chad Gable winning the title at SummerSlam
yeah.
because you don't
Although
want to.
Money in the money,
Go ahead.
you think it'll be happening at SummerSlam? I mean, you've got Money in the Bank in Canada. do you see WWE pulling another, Clash of the Castle where the hometown hero in Sami Zayn, being from Canada? Do you see WWE pulling, Chad Gable wins it in Sami Zayn's home country? Do you see that happen, or do you see it? Do you see it more a SummerSlam match?
So this is kind of off the subject a little bit, but
Yeah.
if they're gonna focus on the whole Gable and Zayn storyline going into SummerSlam, if they have Gable win the title, then I would like to see, even at Money in the Bank, probably do like maybe a little screw job just to see if Gable does beat him at Money in the Bank for the title. But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I think we need to go the easier route and have Gable align himself with the Creed Brothers now, so that way when we do go into SummerSlam, we do crown a new champion going into SummerSlam.
All right. I'm in a fantasy book here. But so when, because it's going to happen, because Chad Gable, I remember, with his Shorty G gimmick, I remember when he came in with Jason Jordan, dude. Their tag team was great in NXT. When he came in, I was like, wow, this guy's great. I've loved Chad Gable's performance ever since I first saw him on the main roster. I remember when he came in. I forget what year it was, but I would love to see if, when Chad Gable wins a title, I would love to see feuds like with Braun Breaker or Ilya Dragunov. Ricochet's not there anymore, but that would have been cool. What other mid card talents are there that we could see a match with? Dude, there's endless possibilities when it comes to matches that Chad Gable, he's such a good wrestler. He could put anybody over. He sells very well. He's quick on his feet. His ring psychology is wonderful. Yeah, once he wins that title, I mean, the world is his oyster.
So I think what we're gonna start doing now is maybe bringing in Carmelo Hayes a lot more, and maybe doing a feud by the end of the year with Gable if Gable's champion by then. I
Isn't
think we
Carmelo
should
Hayes on
do
SmackDown?
yeah, but I think what we should do is so basically if they're gonna do a Raw versus SmackDown match going into Survivor Series, I would like to see it a lot more heading into the end of the year. So that way, maybe by next year's summer, I think we get Carmelo Hayes being an Intercontinental Champion going into next summer.
Yeah.
Because I
Okay.
mean, I want to see more. Even though I want to see Chad Gable with the title right now heading into WrestleMania season, I still think Chad can put over a couple people just so when he loses the title at WrestleMania, he can go on with his group and they can win the tag team titles. Or if Chad Gable's smart and he goes over to SmackDown, I think we can have him be the undisputed champion going into maybe next year by next summer. So now you have the Creed
Dude,
Brothers
imagine,
tag team champions. Now you can make Chad Gable
bro,
undisputed champion.
just imagine, like, I'm just, if Chad, if there was a draft going on, and well, so backpedaling here, but you mentioned that Chad Gable is losing the title at Mania, right?
Right.
Who would that be against?
If my correction would be correct, maybe Dragonoff. I mean, if we get if now the only person I could see maybe getting a singles title by WrestleMania next year. I mean, if he's playing his cards out right, I can see Braun Breaker coming in and maybe facing him for the title, just so Braun Breaker could have a championship on his wings by WrestleMania next year. But if people want to see, like that 5-star rating match that like never been
Right.
done before, I would say let's go with Carmelo Hayes versus Chad Gable at WrestleMania next year. So that way we at least pull the title off of him.
Yep.
At Mania would put it on Hayes. So So that way we have Intercontinental Champion on SmackDown instead of Raw.
Yep.
And let's put the U.S. title back on Monday Night Raw.
So going to Sami Zayn, for him to lose the title, it would be smart. Because I personally, if WWE is going to do war games with the Bloodline versus the new Bloodline versus the old Bloodline, I think having Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns, and the Usos on one side would be great, and then having the new Bloodline, as well, on the other side. So, for in order for Sami Zayn to be in that storyline, he would have to lose that IC title, whether it's at Money in the Bank or SummerSlam. We'll have yet to see, but I personally would like to see Sami Zayn in that Bloodline feud eventually, because he was an honorary Us.
So
And
now since if Roman Reigns is coming back as a babyface to
yeah,
face his cousins, I think it makes more sense just to put Sami Zayn in the Civil War match at War Games, because the only other person I could see being the fourth member would be Jacob Fatu. And if
who is Jacob Fatu?
so, Jacob Fatu is Tanga Loa's younger cousin
Okay.
in the bloodline. So if that's gonna be the case, and they want to make Fatu the good guy, so basically it's Rikishi's so it's basically Rikishi's nephew.
All right.
So if they want to do that scenario where they can put Jacob Fatu as the good guy on the original Bloodlines side, I can see him signing with Roman Reigns and the Usos and
Yeah.
facing Soul Sikoa's team. But if you're definitely correct on that one. If they want to go the original route and put Sami Zayn with Roman Reigns and the Usos, I think it'd be better only because the original storyline with the Bloodline originated with the honorary Usos with Sami Zayn in the group.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be smart on WWE's part, going back to, and they can pick up to where they left off, and they can pick up on some older dialogue, and I think that would be a lot of fun. But
Right.
going back, into the previous story with Chad Gable and Sami Zayn before Mania. Chad Gable, like, he had his match with Gunther, he lost his match, and after the match, we witnessed, Chad Gable's like daughter crying, and he was out for redemption, and then he had his match with Gunther, I think, and then he lost that. So when Sami Zayn had his opportunity, Chad Gable was like, I'm going to train you to beat him, and you're going to beat him. So he's like a mentor, almost like a mentor to him.
Right.
So Sami Zayn wins the title. When Sami Zayn wins the title at Mania, and then I guess like Sami Zayn, being the babyface and such he is, saw what Chad Gable was doing to his stable, the Alpha Academy. Sami Zayn standing up for that. He's like, you guys are better than this. You don't. If, his body language and what you guys fall in line, and we'll win my Intercontinental Champion. I don't think there's ever been a we. It's always been about him. And Sami Zayn has kind of, saw that in Chad Gable's you know tone, and so that's where the story's going right now. As far as what happened on Saturday, um, what was it? There was another. There was, yeah. Otis and Maxine left the ring, and Chad Gable was on his own. Tozawa was nowhere to be found. I don't know where he was. Um, But yeah, we'll see. I mean, dude, when that match ended, Chad Gable looked pissed. So I don't know. I don't know if the payoffs can happen tonight or tomorrow, but dude, I think what's gonna happen is Chad Otis are gonna face off. Chad's gonna be really pissed at him and start talking to him, and then the Creeds out of nowhere are gonna start beating up Otis, and Chad Gable is gonna pretend, oh wait, what are you guys doing? Don't beat him up. And then he turns and then starts beating on Otis. So then he aligns himself with the Creed brothers.
Um, it's interesting you're saying that because it does bring me to back in 2003 when Team Angle was official group, and I think the way Kurt Angle wanted to have his own group with him was to make him a lot stronger,
Right.
being a champion going into WrestleMania that year. And I think having them two by his side and align with him was also always making him feel so much stronger going to the match with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 19. So,
Yeah.
so as they formed that team, we knew how strong they were as a force going into Backlash after that Judgment Day. So that when Judgment Day hit, Kurt Angle had already got hurt. So like Kurt Angle already pulled himself away from the tag team. So now we're looking at maybe by next year we could already see a new version of Team Angle, but Team Alpha Academy. So now we can see like maybe the Creed brothers be tag team champions by the end of the year, maybe after Survivor Series. So then when we go into WrestleMania season, for next year, we can do maybe a fatal 4-way tag team championship match in WrestleMania. And then if Chad Gable, I'm not saying it might be true, but if it does happen, we could have Chad Gable fight somebody when he's champion by the end of the year, fight whoever the winner is next year.
Yeah,
from the Royal Rumble.
I can see that because I mean I don't know who's gonna if you're saying that the Miz and R-Truth are gonna be the tag champions until next year's WrestleMania. I don't know if I can handle that, dude. Because I mean I enjoy the comedy here and there, but it seems like it's every week with Miz trying to find R-Truth and R-Truth with his one-liners and his comments. It was a fun WrestleMania moment for what it was, but they need to put those titles on someone who can, you know, defend them proudly and call themselves champions because it's like a comedy duo. I mean I don't mind comedy in wrestling, but there's a limit to it.
Right. And I think that I definitely think that with
Yeah.
Miz and Truth holding off a while just so WWE productively figure out who they want to have as new Raw champions going into after the summer ends. They want to figure out who they want as Raw champions going into the end of the year and possibly going into WrestleMania season next year. So, they want to hold off to those titles for a while until they figure out who they want next as champions. Because if it's going to be like a back and forth type month where they don't know who they want as champions at the time, then we're going to look at maybe by Survivor Series, we might do like a tag team turmoil at Survivor Series, or maybe at the pay per view in December, whichever what it is. We don't know. So what my understanding comes to about is maybe if they don't know who they want as Raw Tag Team Champions by going to the end of the year, what I would do is by Survivor Series, I do a Raw Tag Team Turmoil Tag Team match at Survivor Series. So that way, R-Truth and Miz have to go through all these teams, and whoever pins them keeps continuing on and on and on until that last tag team is standing. It's basically kind of like an Iron Man match, but kind of like, but they want to keep on getting pinfall after pinfall after pinfall to see if they can keep the titles, because at some point or another, it's going to start getting boring if they keep titles on next year's WrestleMania. And we want to be able to have different champions going into next year's WrestleMania, because we don't want to see the same things on and on and on. But even if we have to take tag team titles off them right now, I think it'd be the best thing to do is maybe by SummerSlam, give the Creed brothers tag team championships.
Yes, for sure. It's kind of like on SmackDown, Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. Now there is some turmoil there, because Grayson Waller pulled Austin Theory in the way, and then Austin Theory took got hit, so Grayson Waller, got out of that tope suicida. But it seems like there's going to be a breakup there. Um, in a division, in a tag team division where you need tag teams, I don't know why they're breaking them up, but again, like the comedy, the talk shows and whatnot, it's taking away from the actual matches. And if you're gonna put the tag team titles on anyone, I think it should be DIY. And I don't want to say like have the same blueprint as Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, only hold those titles to then split and have a rivalry like no other. But I think that's what also happened with DIY eventually, and then maybe get dude a WrestleMania match between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. Dude, that would be cool. I would love, dude. That would be great. It would be like a full circle for them.
So when you watch them grow in NXT, Tommaso Ciampa kind of reminds me of a young ringmaster from back in Austin's early days. And when you put him in the ring together with Johnny Gargano, it makes more sense as a tag team, because you have one guy that does high flying, you have one guy that does submission holds, you have another guy that's a grappler type submission guy. You want to have it all come forced around in their whole tag team itself. And I think having DIY team up together makes more sense in
Yes.
fighting for a championship spot. And I think if WWE is smart, which I think they would be, I would definitely put the titles on DIY up until maybe into WrestleMania season. So when the Royal Rumble next year comes about, maybe we see a split during the Rumble match between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, because maybe we get one or two throw each other out, or when they split the titles, they go into WrestleMania, kind of like the Ray and Eddie match going to WrestleMania 21, where they were tag team champions. So if they have to still keep the championships on each other, hey, let's have a match between each other to see who the better man is.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see that. So, and going to the last story for tonight, and the big one, dude. And I'm very excited to talk about this because I'm a huge horror fanatic. So when the Fiend debuted in 2019, I enjoyed Swamp Bray Wyatt for what he was. But dude, when the Fiend debuted, dude, I was like, "What the fuck is this shit, dude?" I was so excited. I'm a huge fan of the horror genre when it comes to psychological horror, gore, whatnot. But dude, the Fiend character was just so cool. Um, and the fuse he had, the QR codes when Bray Wyatt was coming back in 2022. Dude, that was so much fun. And then God rest his soul. He was taken way too early from us. August of what was it? August of 23.
Yes.
August of last year. And then we had the documentary, which was great, dude. And I'm not gonna lie, man, I got emotional when it came to, the call from, his wife JoJo, and he wasn't breathing, and they took him to the hospital, and Bo was there, he was crying, and then at the end of the documentary, we had the Uncle Howdy tease. Now, that was April 1st. It's now June 16th, and tonight we're getting the return of Uncle Howdy. Now, the rumored faction is Joe Gacy. I'm gonna get to all these guys. Joe Gacy. I remember. I haven't watched NXT in a very long time. I'll only watch it for Halloween Havoc. That's about it. And that's where I'm gonna get to Dexter Lumis next. But I remember on YouTube, I watched a video with Joe Gacy. I forget who he feuded with, but he had like Druins with him, and he had that cultic, like demonic, like tone to it, like tone to him, dude. This this uh this role is perfect for him. That's really the only um, you know sighting I've seen of Joe Gacy. Now going to Dexter Lumis. The first time I saw him was Cameron Grimes versus Dexter Lumis at Halloween Havoc. I believe it was 2019 in October. That was my first sighting of Dexter Lumis. Dude, he's like Michael Myers, bro. He doesn't speak. He's like, he's a slow stalker type guy. And I remember when he debuted on the main roster, he feuded with the Miz, but he still had that psychotic, slow, non-speaking
Correct.
character. And I was like, whoa, what? Like, this guy's awesome. I love it. And then you have Nikki Cross, who is the other the other faction member that is rumored. I remember SmackDown 2019. I went with my wife to a SmackDown. It was actually the SmackDown before WrestleMania 35, and oh geez, what was that faction? With the helicopters and stuff. Do you remember?
Yes.
What was that? What was that stable called? Do you remember?
Oh God. It might have been like a long time from now you're saying from NXT though, right?
Yeah, they were NXT, and they got called up to the main roster. Um,
Um, it'll come to my mind once we get
all
through
right,
with tonight's episode. I can definitely tell you
all
after
right.
the
But
tonight's episode's over.
Nikki Cross was in that faction, and she had the straight jacket, psychological crazy, like, spider thing that Bray Wyatt did when he was the Fiend, or when he was Swan Man Bray Wyatt. She was just crazy Nikki Cross there, crazy Nikki. And then it's funny because Nikki and Alexa were once a tag team. Then the other rumored character is Alexa Bliss. Now, she's been off television for a very long time. Obviously, the pregnancy with her husband, or congratulations to her, tending to the baby. But yeah, that's the other rumored character, or the other rumored character for the faction. Dude, I went to WrestleMania 37 with the Fiend versus Randy Orton. Dude, I'm not gonna lie to you. When I got dropped off at Raymond James Stadium, and I heard and I saw the video package for the Fiend and Randy Orton, dude, I fucking ran from the entranceway to the arena. I've never, because that was the one match that I was so anticipated for. The ending sucked, dude. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Alexa Bliss taking all the Fiend's powers, I didn't like that at all. Um, but that's the other rumored character, and she's played it very well, with Bray Wyatt and everything. I think to pay homage to Bray Wyatt, Alexa Bliss being in that stable would be great. And then there's Eric Rowan, as you know, very close to Bray Wyatt. Maybe Braun
Right.
Strowman, but those characters are the rumored faction tonight. Um, I'm gonna go back to because I was JD from NY on the weekly, and shout out to JD if you ever listen to this. You've inspired us to do this. So he said, "There's got to be a payoff because we've waited 2 months for this ever since the Bray Wyatt tribute. If there's not a massacre, it's going to be a letdown, dude. I'm expecting a retribution Nexus like massacre, and another question is, who are they going to target? Obviously, somebody on Raw. Obviously, somebody.
Well,
I don't know who they're going to target.
well,
What is their purpose? Why are they coming back?
well. The thing that gets me the most about how they're gonna transform themselves into a group tonight. I think what's
Yep.
gonna happen is if they're gonna target somebody, and I think it might be okay to do, I would actually try to jump. And I'm not saying because I want it to be for the world title, but I think they should really go after the Judgment Day to start off the feud, just so like Damian Priest has somebody to feud with for a month until SummerSlam, because I feel like that way Damian Priest can have somebody to face for a couple weeks, but not for the title, but when they get to SummerSlam, you want to break away from that like scenery and have a new competition guy come in and face Damian Priest. So that way, even if
Yeah.
the two groups are still going at each other, that thing could last up until Survivor Series, which would be freaking amazing. Even though they would have the same matches, but at the same point in time, you're still seeing what would transpire if they really tonight go after Judgment Day to set up a big feud for a whole month of July. Because if we get to that point where, if Uncle Howdy does go after Damian Priest, or anybody in the Judgment Day, and now we're looking at, well, what's going to happen now? Is he really going for the world title when he comes back? Do people really want to see this when he really comes back from this? Because like when he first left, he was helping Bray Wyatt fight off LA Knight. So now when Bray Wyatt was supposed to fight at WrestleMania, we never got that Bobby Lashley match with him. So now you're gonna tell me we're gonna go into July, and your welcome back return is against the world champion? That's ridiculous. But if it's really me, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I would rather them go ahead. I would rather them go after Finn Balor, because I think we could do a Demon Balor versus Uncle Howdy, maybe going into SummerSlam. I mean, I know it's hard. I know it's very hard to say, but at the end of the day, like you want creativity to be on your side, so that way when we're getting newer storylines, newer matches, newer everything, you want to make sure the creativity's all there for the taking. We want to see what's going to transpire when they first return tonight. Even if it's just Uncle Howdy tonight, we want to see what he does going into the rest of the year.
I lost you there.
You got me?
Yeah, where did you leave off? Sorry about that.
So, uh, so I was talking about the so um so the whole situation with like Uncle Howdy coming back, and we're trying to see like where he's at back into the fray. Like, you know, we last saw him. Yeah, we last saw him like right before WrestleMania last year. And you got to think to yourself, like, well, Bray Wyatt was supposed to fight Bobby Lashley in that month. So you were going to tell me that we went from a supposedly Bobby Lashley Bray Wyatt match at Mania or Uncle Howdy versus Bray Wyatt in WrestleMania 39, and we're now getting, you coming back a year and 3 months later to go after our world champion when we were supposed to wait until like Bray Wyatt got healthy so that way when he won his world title match, he was probably going to get it maybe over the course of the summer, maybe going into the summer of that year.
Mm.
But now you're looking at like Uncle Howdy coming back and like targeting Judgment Day, which I can understand why, because they say they run Monday nights. As what
Right.
they say. They say they run Monday nights.
Yes.
Well, now if you're bringing in a new group, in the Wyatt Six or the Wyatt family, we want to have a newer top group that can take them on going into the summer.
Right.
So that way we have, like I said, we have newer matches, we have newer competition, we have new storylines, we need new everything. So
Yes.
if Triple H is saying we living off the new era in professional wrestling, we need to have brand new competition, brand new storylines, brand new everything.
Mm-hmm.
So now when Uncle Howdy comes back, if he's going to target Damian Priest tonight or Judgment Day or anybody in Judgment Day, we got to see how it's going to unfold going into within like the last couple minutes of the night, because we feel like it's possibly going to happen, because who honestly on the Raw roster, because you really see the Wyatt family attack or Uncle Howdy attack going into tonight.
Yes. Now, one more question before we get to what you wanted to mention earlier. Do you think, because we already have the countdown clock tonight, do you think there will be one more final QR code before the reveal?
Yes.
What do you think that will be?
I could see maybe a cabin catching on fire, or maybe somebody's in a rocking chair that's turned around, like when the Wyatt family first started, and nobody knows who it is. It's always
Mm-hmm.
pitch dark black, and we don't know who it is. And they say the countdown's on tonight, and then the final code says "Let me in."
How
So now go ahead.
kept catching on fire, bro? What if it's all the factions are all in rocking chairs, their backs towards us, and they rise and then turn their heads, and then it turns black. The rocking chair that Bray Wyatt, because if you remember the tribute to Bray Wyatt, they had a rocking chair in the middle of the ring. What if they bring that
So
back, but they're all sitting in a rocking chair?
so I think that would be an excellent idea. I think that would be a totally excellent idea, only because it sparks interest to everybody, and on top of it, we're getting something brand new that no one's ever seen before.
Yeah,
Especially on a
I'm excited.
vignette. Yep, especially on a promo, vignette,
Yep.
anything. We haven't seen the things at all.
Yes, and I've been seeing the circulations on YouTube over the months. There have been the Blackbird music during commercial breaks. The lights would flicker and whatnot. to get that finally on television, that would be a breath of fresh air, because the only way you would be able to see it was on YouTube or either live in attendance. But now the world can see what WWE was doing the entire time, um, with the Blackbirds track and the lights flickering and all that. So yeah, I'm
So
excited.
I wonder. So this is also another thing I was thinking about earlier today. Was I wonder if Uncle Howdy comes out, and especially in the smoke, especially for his entrance, and he's got like, it's kind of like Edgar Allan Poe back in the day. Like he would stick his arm out, and he has the raven on his arm. So, and like for the bird to like fly away, or like to fly somewhere, like even on the ring post, the ring ropes, anything, and just have a stare down with like whoever he's gonna target,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden the person that they're targeting is staring at the bird the whole time. They have like a Joey Gacy or Eric Rowan or anybody from the new side of the family come from behind that person and do their finisher on them, signifying that like, now this is our time now. Like this is our spot, our, our time to shine. Basically
it's
saying,
funny. It's funny because you look at hold on. Remember, so going back, if you remember when they had Rhea Ripley on screen and you saw that purple lighting behind her. This
yes,
was before Judgment Day, and then she
right.
was revealed with the group. Dude, they talk about Blackbird, right?
Uh,
What if they target Lyra Valkyria and they get her to, because Blackbird, she is, she's, the Nightwing and the bird, and she got the entrance with the bird feathers and the raven. Um, I think it'd be a good fit. But then
um,
again, you are Nikki Cross and Alexa. You're gonna add Lyra.
um, I think instead of having, well, now the only thing that would make a little sense is having Lyra and Nikki Cross as a tag team, because
Yeah,
you have these two dark women that could be like a darker side version of, like, Apple Fire or what's her face as a tag team, because now we're getting
Isla
that
Dawn.
like right. So especially getting that like fiery type tag team like for them. Now you're bringing in a new darker women's tag team from the Wyatt family. So now we're getting like a Lyra Valkyria, and we're getting a Nikki Cross, which is a darker tag team now. Where it's like,
Right.
oh my god, now we have like this darker ministry type tag team now that's coming in here. Like this is gonna be incredible, and I think
Yeah.
even if you brought Alexa into the fray, I think she's gonna be the head leader with Uncle Howdy, just so we can throw everything out there, so we still get the White Six family. Because you're looking at, okay,
Yeah.
we have three girls, but now we have two guys. You have Eric Rowan and you have Joey Gacy. But if people want more guys in the group, yes, we do bring in Dexter Lumis to be that crazy psychopath lunatic running around.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
And
see
it would
that.
be
Now,
more interesting to see that. But you know, I still think we still see Alexa Bliss and Uncle Howdy walking out together as a darker new Wyatt family is resumes in our attention.
yes. Now, the reason I mentioned Lyra Valkyria, now I'm gonna, put my Resident Evil lore out there because I'm a huge fan of the series. So, if you've ever played Resident Evil 8, you'll know that when you get to the Beneviento Mansion and you get into the basement and you're trying to open up that door, dude, there's a fucking blackbird that looks identical to the blackbird that we've seen on the screen. Not only that, but the final boss, Mother Miranda, she has the wings of Lyra Valkyria, and she's a shapeshifter. She can transform into anyone. She almost like Ditto from Pokemon.
Uh
She's
huh.
like that. I just had to put that out there. Now, going to what you mentioned earlier, we're shifting gears here. Um, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about SummerSlam and Money in the Bank, which is funny because Money in the Bank. You know what? You want to know what the theme is?
Go ahead, I'm listening. Yep,
You
I'm
there?
here.
All right. Do you want to know what the theme is of Money in the
What
Bank?
is it?
It's a bank heist, which it goes with our
it,
podcast, the Backstage Heist.
it's so funny you brought that up because
Yeah.
it's kind of like us, like you said, it's kind of like us robbing the bank for both companies that we talk about, and it makes more sense to go, oh well, bank heist, Money in the Bank heist, tease.
Yeah. 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 So
Interesting.
yeah. So you wanted to talk about SummerSlam and Money in the Bank. What did you want to mention?
So what I was thinking, I think I mentioned this on the last episode. Um, I do think if we continue the Bloodline storyline with Jey Uso getting the Bloodline back together, I could see possibly him winning the briefcase only to surrender it to somebody maybe on the other side of the Bloodline. So that way, thinking that Jey Uso lost his briefcase to one of his cousins, and now we have to see this whole civil war start up now, where like the Usos get back together, Roman's coming back, and now we're gonna get a huge war games going on at Survivor Series between the two, the OG Bloodline versus the new OG. So, if in conclusion, I could totally say that maybe if Jey Uso is smart enough and he does win the briefcase and Money in the Bank, I can see him possibly winning at SummerSlam and stealing one from Damian Priest.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that too. I can definitely see that. It's funny you mentioned dude. As soon as I heard Damien or Jey Uso was qualifying for Money in the Bank, I knew that there would be some sort of bloodline storyline that would be brewing into that. That could be. I believe I mentioned it on the last podcast we did. That Jimmy Uso would come back to help out his brother because their back to back feud against each other ended at Mania, and you can't you got to bury the hatchet somehow. What
Right.
better way to bury the hatchet than for one of the Bloodline line members to interfere in Jey Uso's opportunity to win Money in the Bank, only for Jimmy to come out and help his brother win it,
Right.
then win it for Dame, win it against Damien, possibly like you said at SummerSlam. That's very good. I like that.
Because now the only thing that does make sense
Yeah.
to me, even if Gunther fights Priest at SummerSlam, and Gunther does win the title, maybe Uso comes in and cashes it in on Gunther, just because Jey Uso never got that win against Gunther twice, and we never got that sole victory over Gunther the two times he fought each other on Raw. So maybe he finally gets it when he wins the briefcase at Money in the Bank, and then maybe at SummerSlam we do see him finally get that victory over Gunther when Gunther finally beats Priest for the title.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, because think about it this way: if Damian Priest and Gunther fight each other at SummerSlam, we already know we're getting a new world champion. Despite everything that's going on right now, heading into Money in the Bank, we already know right now we're getting a new world champion going to SummerSlam. So if they wanted to do it the easy way out and to keep Jey Uso as world champion for a while until Gunther gets the title back afterwards, I think we do get Jey Uso winning the briefcase, go into SummerSlam, and or take the briefcase, go to SummerSlam. Whoever wins the match at SummerSlam pins that person. Then maybe at Bash in Berlin, that we get Gunther winning the title back at Bash in Berlin.
Yeah, yeah, because it will be in Germany.
So I do think going into SummerSlam, Uso could hold the title for maybe a couple weeks and saying that he won the big one. So then when they get their rematch at Bash in Berlin, I do think Gunther wins the title back, and Gunther holds the world title up until WrestleMania.
Yeah, I like that.
Because I think maybe what we can possibly do going into WrestleMania next year. With that being said, I think we can have a Gunther versus Drew McIntyre versus a CM Punk match. Maybe we get a triple threat match going to WrestleMania next year.
Well, what if Gunther wins the title at SummerSlam, and then Brock Lesnar appears, and then we get Lesnar and Gunther at WrestleMania, and then Gunther puts over, because we have heard Gunther say that Brock Lesnar is his final boss, and then you have Brock Lesnar put over Gunther at WrestleMania, but fast forwarding, who would you see? Kind of like what I asked earlier, who would you see Chad Gable, feud with? Who would you see? Who would you see Gunther? Once he becomes a world champion, who do you see that? Who do you see? Who do you see beating Gunther to be the new world champion? Do you think Seth Rollins comes back and reclaims his title?
So, I do think if Rollins comes back after the year is over and he comes in by the Royal Rumble, which I definitely doubt he will, because I think he's taking a long time off. But if he does decide to come back for Mania season next year, we can definitely see a Gunther Seth Rollins world title match at WrestleMania next year,
Yeah.
and or I could see, like I said, there's so many priorities right now going into WrestleMania season, which maybe we could see different other matches. We could see maybe like, let's throw CM Punk, Rollins, and Gunther a triple threat. Let's throw different type of people at each other. We're like, how are we gonna fix this up going into WrestleMania season next year? Because even though WrestleMania next year is gonna be way past April, like in the middle of April
Yeah.
next year,
April 19th and 20th.
like going into Vegas next year, we want to see if WrestleMania 40 was the bigger WrestleMania going from this year into next. Because now we're looking at, going to next year, we're definitely getting Roman Reigns versus The Rock main event night 2.
Mhm.
Who's going to headline WrestleMania night 1?
Well, do you think that WWE will do something like they did this year and make night one accumulate and transition story and match wise into night two?
I do see transitional wise, I can see that happening going from night 1 into night 2. But if they were gonna have like 2 title matches for the world title, I can see it playing out
Yeah.
from like a singles match. Yeah, like a singles match night 1 that happened in the main event. Maybe having another match into night 2 before the undisputed title match happens. So now we're getting like world title night 1 and night 1 and night 2 before the undisputed title match happens. So that way now you're getting 2 world title matches back to back nights. So even if that does not happen, we could totally see maybe a triple threat match for a world title going to night 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm excited. Starting tonight, we're going to see a lot of things unfold, and I know it's we're looking at 10 months from next year's WrestleMania, but I mean, The Rock, he's saying, we're on the one line, to the biggest and best WrestleMania of all time, which is, I thought WrestleMania 40 was the biggest WrestleMania of all time, but, 41 being in Vegas, I mean, the entertainment capital of the world. I mean, yeah, I'm excited for Mania 41 to see what matches are going to be put on there. And where The Rock said, like I said earlier, like I just said, we're on the 1 yard line to WrestleMania 41. What does that mean? Do you
Well,
see Rock coming back at SummerSlam? I mean,
so
he did get hurt during one of his upcoming UFC movies. He got hurt on set, I think.
So I did hear his new movie, The Smashing Machine. He got hurt, and I think he had like an elbow inflammation that happened to him. So he basically might be like silent for a month just because he's not wrestling right now. But to make more movie wise, I think he'll be on the shelf for a couple months just so he can rest his elbow up. So maybe by WrestleMania next year, I could totally see him having that match with Roman Reigns next year, going to WrestleMania.
So after that match at WrestleMania, do you see him fully retiring? And
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
do
Absolutely.
you think I think this is what WWE is going to do? They're going to put The Rock in the Hall of Fame next year, and kind of like with Rey Mysterio and Dominic, how that storyline played out during his Hall of Fame speech ceremony. The Rock's going to have his Hall of Fame ceremony, and Roman Reigns is going to do what he needs to do to break, to demolish it, and then they're going to have their match. I think that's what WWE is going to do. Um, you know, Triple H, The Rock and Triple H had their altercation at the Las Vegas 40 kickoff, which is ironic because 41 is in Vegas, and they had their 40 kickoff show in Vegas, which was great. That was a great showing between the upcoming matches and what's going on. But when do you see Triple H being put into the Hall of Fame?
So I mean, at the same point in time, because I know Triple H and The Rock both came into WWE about the same time, but I think Triple H had kind of got there a little earlier, just because Triple H was in WCW for about a year or so, or a couple years or so,
Mm-hmm.
and Vince McMahon at the time had wanted to see what they could do with Paul Levesque at the time, as undernoticed Triple H. And when Triple H got called up from Vince McMahon at the time in 95, 96, he said, I could use you as like a blue blood type, British type guy to come in here and work your butt off with the character I have you doing.
Mm-hmm.
When Dwayne Johnson came in off the streets from playing for the University of Miami, he said, I can come in here and be your own wrestler. So at that point in time, really Dwayne Johnson and Triple H both came in at the same point in time where they both fought each other in their young age. And I think it would make perfectly good sense that maybe 26, 36 years later that we see them being put both into the Hall of Fame in the same year.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because I now at some point in time, Triple H is gonna want to do himself and put himself in the Hall of Fame, in like the class of like him and Dwayne Johnson, Brock Lesnar, any more tag teams they haven't said yet. I mean, we have so many people left that they haven't put in the Hall of Fame yet lately, and this might be like the big question of the day. And I know this is off the top of my head, but at some point in time, they're definitely going to have to put Owen Hart and Brian Pillman into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yes.
Because as much as they say, like right now, they have put the British Bulldog already in the Hall of Fame, and they have already put Jim Anvil Neidhart and Bret Hart into the Hall of Fame. So, at what point in time does Triple H pull the cord because you got to think for a second. Back in the late '90s, Triple H and Owen Hart had a lot of great battles when Triple H was in DX and Owen Hart was in the Nation. So you got to think for a second that at some point in the back of his mind, even though Owen Hart died in a tragic affair, that the Hart family looks at that as in being like, this is a Vince McMahon idea. Like, this was not supposed to happen, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when does Paul Levesque pull the cord back and say, you know what? I think this would be a great opportunity to call Owen's wife and say, I would love to put your husband into the WWE Hall of Fame. He definitely deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame just because he was with our company for such a very, very long time.
Right.
And I think he deserves a spot into maybe going into next year, 2025 Hall of Fame or 26. Within the next 2 years, I do see that happening. Because at what point in time do you say to yourself, well, I would love to put him into a Hall of Fame, but which year do you put him in? Because, we're not getting any younger, we're not getting any older, so at what point in time now do you see this happening and him, Triple H, putting Owen Hart into the Hall of Fame?
Well, you also have to think for a second. And I love where you're going with that. But, dude, Vince McMahon was in charge of all the Hall of Fame inductions up until this year. Triple H now has the reins. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it definitely will happen now that Triple H has full charge of who's going into Hall of Fame. This year was kind of a dud, but at the same time, it led to the story that was created in night one when The Rock was given that People's Championship for Muhammad Ali. And he said, you're called the People's Champion. Do you mind if I use that? And Muhammad Ali, great honor. And he used that title to go into the match at WrestleMania Night 1, which you were a part of. Very lucky you were there, because how many more Rock matches are you going to see nowadays?
I mean,
Yeah.
especially because you brought up a good point, because growing up, especially in my teens, like, I actually got to see him live in person on every once in a while on an episode of Smackdown, a Raw, a pay-per-view. Like, I've been to so many things back in my time. So,
Weren't you there? It was Arnold Schwarzenegger promoting his movie, The End of Days.
I was there,
Oh,
yes. And you
gosh.
brought that. Thank God you brought that, because I was just about to say, the night that it was an 8-man tag, and I'll never forget this. It was an 8-man tag between Test, Shane, Rock, and Kane versus DX. And Austin was the special enforcer outside with Arnold Schwarzenegger being the commentary. And when you look back at late '90s and you look back at how The Rock transitions himself into what people now call him the People's Champion, is because his comedy work, his ring ethic, and his entrance make people love him for who he is today. And I will never forget the minute he came out, that place erupted, because I've never heard so electricity throughout the whole arena go so haywire for Dwayne Johnson, because I feel like he brought us so much glory back to that time when Stone Cold was out for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And people were always talking about the rival between Triple H and The Rock. And when Stone Cold was out because of the car accident, we wanted to see what person from that era was going to step up. Dwayne The Rock Johnson was the only person at that time that was a good guy that was really going to step up his game while Stone Cold was away. So now we have this guy that's going to take our industry, our era from the back in the 2000s, and make it worth everybody's weight, because you feel like now that Dwayne's in his almost 60 years old era, he's gonna start having like find 1 or 2 more matches to do, and that's completely it. He has like no more else to. he has nothing else to prove to himself or anybody.
No.
You know, but now that we're getting the Roman Reigns versus The Rock match going into WrestleMania next year, we finally now have, yes, like you said, that final boss, that final stage going into WrestleMania next year. So that way, when he does retire, we finally have, that closure on his career. We finally have that like last bit of piece to his career. So that way, we know now what to expect on the end of his career.
Yes, definitely. Talking Hall of Fame, two things. I think Roman Reigns, from what I read, he wants to retire by 39 years old, and Cena wants to retire when he's 50. I don't know how old either man is, but I don't think that's far off. Do you know how old?
Um. So my speculation is he is definitely 37. It says 37 right now. So he definitely has another 2 more years. So he definitely has 2 more years on his new binding contract. So we're gonna be probably heading into WrestleMania 43 if he's gonna have his last match. So even by then, I'm just praying to God that hopefully by then he's already faced everybody in the company. So if not by then, I would love to see and pray to God. I hope they'll love to see this. I would love to see Gunther and Roman Reigns have their Roman Reigns final match going into WrestleMania 43. So that way, when he retires as world champion and he retires as a champion going into the Hall of Fame. So, but now another to it also, real quick. I also want to point out that I think what might happen if Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton fight each other at SummerSlam. I wanted to bring this up to you earlier. So if Randy Orton defeats Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam and wins the title, I only think it's only going to be because Dwayne The Rock Johnson doesn't really help Orton win the title, but only distracts Cody going into maybe WrestleMania season next year. So that way, again, we might get Dwayne The Rock Johnson versus Cody night one, and then maybe Cody fights somebody night two, kind of like they did last year.
It's funny you mentioned, because I was going to switch gears to SmackDown. We talked about Raw, we talked about the Hall of Fame, and now we're going to talk about SmackDown. The end of the Clash of the the end of Styles and Cody match. The brawl broke out when Cody was up the ramp, and then Kevin Owens and Orton came out to even the odds, and then you saw that glance of Orton, eyeing up that title. I saw the graphic. Would you like to see Solo Sikoa versus Cody at SummerSlam? I mean, if it brings The Rock back, sure, but I don't know, dude. I think Orton and Cody is more suited for SummerSlam. But wouldn't you want this? Wouldn't you want Cody and Orton? Wouldn't you want that feud to slow cook a little more in the oven? Because I mean, if you think like back to like 2009 with the legacy, and they do have a legacy, no pun intended. They had all the time together.
You know what? I would like the story to be a little bit more told, just because, yes, they have a lot of, there's a lot of history there between the two of them, and I feel like if the story got told a lot more, I think it should go into next year, just so maybe at possibly Mania, maybe Rumble-ish, kind of maybe we do get their matchup going, but I know the whole Ted DiBiase in troubleness thing with him
Mm-hmm.
kind of not going to bring Ted DiBiase back to WWE only because of what he's got going on in his whole lifetime right now. But if they do decide to bring Ted DiBiase into that whole picture, I would love to see them, all three of them, get in the ring, and then maybe Orton has that heel turn again, where like he was the babyface at first when they were Legacy. So when they
Mm-hmm.
had their triple threat match at WrestleMania 26, the triple threat match between the three of them, maybe we get that heel turn from Orton on Cody. So that way, when it brings back Ted DiBiase, so that way the two guys' legacy can team up on Orton. So maybe we can, you know what I'm saying? We have that like kind of picture going on nowadays between the two.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
maybe by I'm hopeful it's gonna happen at SummerSlam between the match between the two of them. But if not, I guess hopefully see going into Mania next year, we get that big storyline between Orton and Cody. Because I think people are right now are saying maybe Orton and Cena for Mania next year, career versus career match.
And you see Orton going over Cena.
And I do see Cena going over Orton. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that for sure. Now, going back, like, so keeping on SmackDown, you mentioned that Punk is going to be there on Friday in Chicago. Makes sense, one, because he's from Chicago, but two, if you go back to Clash of the Castle, who costed Drew McIntyre his world title match?
CM Punk.
And why would you have Punk and Drew McIntyre on the same show tonight? You're gonna blow that feud like I drink water every day.
Right.
Like you
Right.
drink water every day. I mean,
Right.
if you want to slow cook this, dude, to have McIntyre tonight, he's gonna, dude. It all how the night's gonna go. It all happens in the first segment. If McIntyre comes out first, you know what you know. It's gonna be a good, you know what's gonna happen.
We already
So
know what the segment's
McIntyre,
going to be in the first
McIntyre,
half.
McIntyre is gonna be pissed, and he's gonna be on the mic for I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or so. But then you have Punk over on SmackDown. Drew's not even on SmackDown, so he's fine. I don't know how long Punk's gonna speak, but he's gonna speak, dude. And you're gonna keep them off separate brands, for the time being, obviously for SmackDown, but next week on Raw, you're gonna have a recap of what Punk said from SmackDown, and it's gonna be a snowball effect. One week's gonna lead to another. But what would have so like we don't know what McIntyre's gonna say. We don't know what Punk's gonna say on SmackDown. But going to next week, after all is said and done, where do you see Monday going story wise? Do you see like any backstage hassle with Punk or with McIntyre trying to find Punk? Do you see anything like that to keep this feud fresh and not rushed? How do you see them prolonging this feud until SummerSlam or whenever the pay-per-view match will happen?
So, I could see them hopefully now where I could see Drew McIntyre saying tonight's segment is saying that Punk cost me my world title match. I was this close from winning the world title. And every time I'm in a title match, I get screwed after time and time again.
Yep.
So now do I see Drew McIntyre getting into the Money in the Bank match? Yes. Do I see Punk costing him the match again? Yes. But in which way? Now, if McIntyre does get into the ladder match, how is Punk gonna be effective going into the ladder match? What's he gonna do to cost
Right.
McIntyre the world title again? You know, no. If if now this is a big if, and I think this might happen. If McIntyre does get into the ladder match and it comes down between him and Jey Uso at the end, I could definitely see maybe Punk helping McIntyre get the briefcase. Maybe. So that way, if McIntyre at SummerSlam, like we do get, we do finally get the Punk versus McIntyre match, whatever, only for McIntyre to win the world title at the end of the night of SummerSlam. Maybe we get another world title match. Like you said, going into Bad Blood, we get that Hell in a Cell match, and Punk does beat McIntyre for the world title.
Okay. Yeah, winning the World Heavyweight Championship.
Because how else would you see that whole plot or storyline played out coming out of tonight? If you had it your way or another, how would you see the plot being played out from tonight's segment going into maybe October?
I would have them keep their distance. For sure. I mean, what they're doing with, McIntyre tonight, he's going to speak. And then Punk being on SmackDown, he's going to speak. Next week, I don't know, just keep them separate however you can. Be creative with it.
Right.
Have security. Well, we all saw what happened with SmackDown when security got involved. That didn't work. That didn't work out well. But I mean, it's funny because if you remember, and what was it? Madam Pierce and Drew McIntyre were talking in the backstage, and McIntyre drove off, and then who immediately showed up behind him?
CM Punk.
So even then, they were keeping their distance, and that's what they need to do until the match. Which they just need to be creative with it. And if anyone's listening, that's what you need to do. You need to be creative with them, keeping their distance until this match happens, because the feud's gonna the feud, the mic work itself is gonna be great. And then they finally have their match. It'll be the video package when the match happens, and they create a video package for it. It's gonna be great. Yeah, the video package for this match will be great based on the mic work that these two men will produce.
So I think having their distance from each other on both shows makes a good point for both of them, because even if Vince McMahon was in charge of running WWE, yes, you're seeing them both on the show together. But now that Paul Levesque has full power now, I think what he's going to do is break them apart. So that way, when we do finally get that match, that solidification match, where it's like, okay, let's put them at Bad Blood or Hell in a Cell or whatever it's going to be called. Now we're getting that final match of their, that final road, the final road step where they need to go to get their final match going. So now we're getting into, August, September. So however long it's going to wait until we finally see that match happen, if we have to wait until October, we're going to wait till October to get that Hell in a Cell match. We're definitely getting it at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if we get it, if we get that Hell in a Cell early, people are going to be very distraught and very, very upset because we wanted to see a long storyline between the two. It's kind of like how when CM Punk was in AEW and the MJF thing with him expanded, because now we wanted to get storyline after storyline after storyline. So when you watch their promo in the ring, they're making it a lot longer than people expect, because they're talking about how things happen in WWE with Punk, or how things happen with MJF in his back time when he first started. Okay. So when you're now doing a Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk storyline, you want to expand the two, especially if you want to separate them. How are you going to separate them if they're both on the same show? You split them away, So that way, one's on Raw, one's on SmackDown, or you can put one on NXT or one on Raw, or one on NXT and one on SmackDown. So that way, especially if you want to separate the two of them, so that way they're not both on the same show, where you can keep them away from each other for a while until Paul Levesque finally says, "You know what? Time is right. Let's put you guys on that one show, and let's go from here."
Yep. Now I'm breaking my fourth wall with keeping them separate, but with Clash of the Castle with Drew McIntyre losing in his own country, and CM Punk embarrassing him. What if Drew McIntyre returns the favor? Punk's in Chicago on SmackDown. What if he somehow embarrasses Punk there?
So I could see something like, now, if they wanted to keep it, I mean, it's no doubt they're not going to keep the match itself a secret. But if they wanted to keep the storyline going, I would have a mystery attacker attack Punk, so that way Punk doesn't know who it is. So that way, like, okay, well, Punk shows up on Raw next week, and he's talking about, well, somebody attacked me in my home state of Chicago. So now we're getting like, okay, instead of them being on the same show, I want to keep it a secret until we finally get that show, or finally get that match. So if I'm Levesque, I'm doing pull an attacker on Punk on Friday. So that way, when we come into next Monday, Punk shows up next Monday and says, "Somebody attacked me. Somebody wanted my attention." Well, now you got it. So, so now, if come SummerSlam or another week goes by after Money in the Bank weekend, and after the Money in the Bank that Raw, now we're getting who the attacker was. Now we know it's Drew McIntyre. So now do we get the matchup at SummerSlam, or do we wait another month or two until October to get the match we want to see between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk?
Well, we're going to find out tonight what McIntyre says, and then obviously with Friday with Punk. Is there anything you want to talk about before we get out of here and prep for Raw?
I do want to make one exception. I'm hoping the segment doesn't go no more than a half hour. I'm hoping it keeps it short and sweet, maybe about 10, 15 minutes. Because if it goes any longer, we definitely might be getting CM Punk play on Raw.
True. Yeah, and we'll see what happens at the end of Raw because I really don't want. I mean, I do, but I don't. If you have Uncle Howdy and his gang, the talk of the town, it might dwell out, what McIntyre said on Raw. But I think those two segments tomorrow night, including Chad Gable, I think that's why tonight I put a short out earlier. Tonight is a must-watch Raw with everything that happened from Clash and going
Exactly.
on into tonight. It's funny because I want to go and look at the QR code and see when it do because that countdown timer, that's real time. That's no, that's no.
So when we get, now, depending on, now here's gonna be the final segment for tonight's episode between us. When we do see that countdown, do we see it during a match, or do we see it during somebody's segment in the ring or backstage? When do we see that countdown finally happening? Because all eyes are going to be on the QR code tonight and Drew McIntyre segment, because now we're looking forward for a big summer event going into SummerSlam this year, because now we're looking forward to the QR code, this new group coming in. Drew McIntyre to CM Punk rival is going to keep on going. So now we're going to push forward with the whole bloodline rival still going on. So now we have more rival stuff going on between everybody, and it's going to all probably lead up into the SummerSlam. So now when we get into tonight's episode of Raw, we're going to finally find out what's going to probably transpire between McIntyre, Punk going into tonight's episode, or we're going to find out hopefully what goes in between the QR code and who the Wyatt family finally goes after. We're gonna find out. And it should be an exciting Raw. So we're hoping we're gonna find out when we watch Raw Monday Night Raw. Oh, and just one more thing
Yeah.
before we head out. So if we do get CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre before October, I don't see it happening in. If we do see it in August, I do not see it happening in October.
No.
Only because I think they're gonna do the Hell in a Cell match at SummerSlam and not Bad Blood. If they do the Bad Blood pay-per-view in October, I don't see that happening at all.
Well, like I
Now,
said, if WWE's creative with keeping them apart, they can definitely do it in October, and this feud calls for it. Because there was another Twitter, it was 41 seconds long, dude. McIntyre was throwing the F bombs around, and yeah, he was really, dude. He was threatening to punch Corey Graves, and he was talking to Wade Barrett. Yeah, he was furious.
if you
Um,
go and listen to uh the post conference with after the show ended, and you hear Wade Barrett talking about, CM Punk should be fired, CM Punk should be all this, CM Punk should never have done what he did. It's kind of like the Montreal screw job. You know, you got to look at it the way CM Punk sees it. Wade Barrett doesn't like CM Punk. The reason why I say that is because if you remember the whole 2010 Nexus from back in 2010, where Wade Barrett was the leader of the group, and now here comes another guy that this group is under new leadership, and here comes CM Punk that takes over the new group, and Wade Barrett got kicked out because they weren't gonna worry about what happened when Wade Barrett left the group, because he was always demanding things, wanting what he wanted this.
right.
CM Punk wanted his own group, and he wanted the way he saw it, as the way he sees it as a new leader. So at that time now, Wade Barrett does not like CM Punk at all. So now, maybe in the next couple months, do we see Wade Barrett come into the fray and align himself with Drew McIntyre and go after CM Punk? Do we see that? We don't know. We're going to find out in the next couple months coming up, the next couple of weeks on Monday Night Raw. We're going to find out.
For sure, definitely. Yeah, that was actually a nice little callback to Nexus. Punk was a part of that. Um, yeah, yeah. I know. Wade Barrett's a commentator now, but to have him in the story, I think that would be pretty cool. But like I said, with the countdown timer, it's literally like 30 minutes from now. So Uncle Howdy and his group, they could show up whenever. But like I said, if you want to make an impact, you have Uncle Howdy and group come out last. McIntyre come out first. That's how
Right.
you have a good Raw. As far as the middle of the show, I don't. Other than Chad Gable, I don't know how it's going to go. With 3 hours of Raw, we'll see. We'll see. If we're going to have McIntyre first and Uncle Howdy last, and then Chad Gable in the middle, I think we're in there for a good Raw.
Yes, we are. I definitely would agree with you on that one, because I think if we all set up the way it's supposed to be set up tonight for Raw, we're in for, number one, a rude awakening, and we're definitely in for a good Raw tonight.
Definitely. All right, guys, that'll do it for us tonight. We will be back next week. We're not sure what day or what kind of days fluctuate. So get notified, and you'll be posted when we do go live for our Backstage HeisT podcast. we kind of are on the fly of weekly news and just our thoughts on how the product's going and where the stories are going. And it's very exciting right now. I mean, we have Roman and Rock, next week, next going on next year. But as of right now, we've got the current stories going on. It's just story after story after story, especially on Raw. It's very exciting.
Very exciting. Very
Yeah.
exciting.
But have a good Monday, guys. Have a good week, and we will see you next week on a new episode of the Backstage podcast with HeisT and T. Take care,
Peace
guys.
out. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace out.